Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This next artist is an alternative songwriter with a decade's worth of genre blending under his belt. Based in the NYC and New Jersey scenes, he's certainly an East Coast force to be reckoned with. Welcome, Ryan, aka Catch Me If You Can.
How you doing? I'm glad to be here.
The question I always like to start with is, where did your music journey all begin?
My mom's basement. Um, Me and my best friend in high school, we had like a really lame obsession with Rock Band, and we kind of made fools out of ourselves doing that. And then afterwards, after we did that, I kind of a lot of the songs we would butcher on plastic instruments. I kind of was like, all right, I'm gonna actually try to learn these. So I pulled out my dad's old guitar, which sounded terrible, needed a lot of work, and then eventually, once I started realizing I wanted to do it, I started asking for guitar stuff for Christmas and stuff, and that's kind of how I got into it.
I no shame in the Rock Band love. I grew up on Guitar Hero World Tour. I still to this day will hear songs and I'll be like, that's the reason I know that Guitar Hero World Tour. So I 100% get it. It's a fun game. There's
They
nothing,
were
there's no
great.
shame for that, and especially if it's a gateway to making music. Like that's maybe we have Rock Band to thank for all this, right?
My friend's mom, because I would always play the guitar, and she was like, "You definitely learned something from playing all that." I'm like, it's a plastic strum thing. I don't know that I learned that much."
Right. And like there's just one button for like where like per
Yeah,
fret. And so it's like, well, there would be like six different strings here. So like, you get maybe some
maybe
of the
just
like basic
dexterity.
mechanics down, but yeah, there's a big jump to make between that
I
and the
will
real thing.
say it kind of like it helped me learn how to sing and like how to
Okay.
kind of not strain your voice and things
Mm.
like that, because you do have that line that kind of you have to pace the line, follow the line. So that I actually did. I will say that probably is a little beneficial there.
So maybe not the guitar, just the singing part, because I
Yeah.
mean, that's not much is changing from the game to the real thing in that category.
Yeah, it's just hopefully you get better as
True, true, true. So, how did picking up your dad's old guitar and going down the guitar path lead you into writing and then lead you into making like your own artist project?
So I've always loved. I originally when I went to college, I wanted to work in Hollywood. I wanted to do work in movies. I wanted to screenwrite. Um, and I still love those things this day. But I kind of after college, I kind of was like, this is a lot harder than I think I originally anticipated, and I kind of was like, I need money, so I started branching out in the different areas. And I had been writing a lot of screenplays and stuff though, and instead of them collecting dust, I kind of was like, all right, let me try to turn these into songs, or like pieces of them into songs. And that's kind of how I started writing music after college, and just taking little parts of them and seeing if I could create narratives out of them that way.
Interesting. I mean, I've been doing this podcast for a while. I don't think I've ever had anybody who like comes from I'm going to write screenplays, but then I'm going to turn them into songs like direction. How do you because like obviously music plays a role in movies and, in the soundtrack and all that. And so it contributes to the storyline in that way. But how do you kind of like take it the other direction and be able to extract something from such a like lengthy, large story with so much depth and layer to it and turn that into 3 or 4 minutes of music?
I definitely would say I strip out some of the like the minutia, or like the things that you would put in a movie where there's like a lot more detail. Like I don't this is a terrible comparison, but like you know how like Living on a Prayer is Tommy and Gina, like that's like the plot of the song. Um it's kind of like that in a sense, where I'm just trying to take like the bare bones of what I already came up with and seeing how I could utilize it, because I did feel like I was writing all this stuff that was just gonna do nothing with.
Hmm.
So it's like I already had these ideas. Let's see how I can take the parts I like and just and still use them.
Wow. No, that's a really cool kind of pathway. And I think that really leads you into, I think I say that like I feel like the storytelling in music has become a lot more prevalent today than maybe it used to. Maybe that's that I wasn't necessarily like not necessarily in the way of like that's like, oh, it's a new thing. People are like putting stories into songs and like using all these details and everything. Obviously, like the example you just gave, that's not a new thing, but I feel like the from the consumer perspective, that's been talked about more than it ever used to. Hence why you get Taylor Swift to the size that she's been with all the like super detaily stuff that she weaves into the songs and everything. But
I think
oh
that's
god,
also
yeah, I
like
don't
you've
know where that point was going.
no, I think I think it makes sense because like a lot of like I mean even a lot of people who love Bruce Springsteen they love it because he's telling like a long story in those songs.
Hmm.
Um, and then you also have like albums that are basically just one like American Idiot is like a whole story.
Mm.
Um, so I mean yeah, it's definitely something where I think maybe I probably was influenced by just listening to music too, just hearing things that have already taken that idea. Because I think American Idiot was also written as a play first, and then he turned it into a
Okay.
album.
Hmm.
I
The
could be
more you
wrong.
know. The more you know. No, but that's yeah, I mean it definitely lends a certain perspective to approaching the song because I feel like sometimes maybe you're not necessarily writing from a blank page, but like you're kind of the story's kind of coming together as it comes rather than being like, hey, this is what I'm trying to sum up in the song and figuring out like how to package it that way. Like it's a different kind of take or approach or like the substance and the like story is essentially there and we're just like recrafting it rather than like we'll see where it goes.
I think also I did it too because I thought it would maybe for at least my life, I thought it would be a healthier way of writing songs instead of like pulling things from my life that
Mm.
I didn't necessarily need to vent on a stage like like just like some stuff like like if you're still talking to someone and you're mad at them maybe don't put it in a song and then tell everyone that you're mad at them and then you're friends again now you have this song so I was trying to avoid those situations.
Yeah, those, I mean, yeah, you can definitely potentially get yourself into trouble just based on the timing of how that series
Mhm.
of events works itself out. But where does the name Catch Me If You Can come from?
So do you ever see the movie?
I believe I have.
So, Tom Hanks's last name, the Tom Hanks's character's last name is my last name, Hanratty. And I think in 2012, I thought I was being clever, and it also kind of played into the whole I'm turning screenplays into songs thing. So I kind of just ran with it. I definitely confuse people, because I am a solo artist. So they're like, "Oh, so you're a band?" I'm like, kinda, no, yes. Um, but so I was mostly a meta joke that I just now I'm stuck with, and I'm okay with it.
No, I mean, I feel like it's gotten more common to have some sort of alias of some sort. Usually it's like a name still like sounding like it still sounds like a person's
Mhm.
name. But I think it also like I mean you get like think about like Owl City, for example. That's just
Yeah.
one guy. Five for Fighting is just one guy. Like
Hmm.
these they sound like bands, right? They sound like
Yeah.
bands and you expect there to be like four guys. And it's just one guy. So, but I didn't make that connection, but I mean it it's a unique connection and a unique story as to where it came from and like you said now you're stuck with it so
I think there was always like the aspect of it too that it was kind of um I could never come up with a good band name. Like, I think because my first band was called Take 34, and it wasn't like anything because of like we were coming up with a cool name. It was because it took us 34 times to get the first song we wrote to sound anything decent. So we were just like Take 34, and then we stuck with it. So I was like, instead of me coming up with these horrible names because I think there was one where this is I'm embarrassing myself, especially if you clip this. Um, the time when I first started the solo act, I some reason called myself Pterodactyl Boy. It was a terrible idea. I played one show with it, and I was like, "No, all right, this needs this." No.
I will say Catch Me If You Can probably has a better like sound to it than that does. And so I think you stuck with the right name. Let's
Yeah,
just
I
we
agree.
can leave it at that. So I know I'm gonna ask my next question, but I know we've kind of already talked about it. So when I ask it, I just kind of let's dive deeper into it because I'm still really curious about this. But so what do you find most often inspires your writing? So what is it that when you go through like stuff that you've written and everything, or maybe it's evolved even since then? I don't know if this is still the active front runner in your writing process, but tell me more about what that process looks like in terms of like writing stories from stories that you've written. Like you're like rewriting your own writing, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I think that's definitely how I started out, and I have a few songs where I kind of that was the sole source, my own source. Um, I'm like my own AI. Um, but it was I think also more recently, politics has definitely kind of I pulled from that just from frustration. Um, but and that one I don't care about venting as much. But I think also I'll take like things where if like maybe like say I tap my vault, like I have nothing really to pull from anymore. I will take like a storytelling stance on stuff and try to uh still keep that sort of process. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not definitely not like t watching something like, oh, but it's kind of more like, oh, I have this idea that could potentially be a screenplay or something like that, but let me st now that I'm already doing this, let me take that, make it a song, and if I had an opportunity or I ever really wanted to write another screenplay, I could at least hold that idea and use
Mm-hmm.
it.
Okay. Yeah, I think yeah, it's just an interesting perspective. Like I feel like even if it wasn't something that you were actively still doing in the sense of writing with like the screenplays and stuff, like it's still an interesting perspective in terms of like the way that you write. So it like it gives you it kind of like a new lens to bring to the table in the way that you write and articulate whatever it is that you're trying to articulate.
For sure. And I have like a phone full of like things that like are ideas. Like I think I wrote not too long ago because I found it on my own Instagram. Like it was like a song that I was just throwing out there to see if anyone liked it. And it was basically about like a bar trying to stay open. And
Mm.
and that was 100% like an example of like me coming up with a concept for something, maybe not even realizing it and then just kind of do it and just seeing what I could do with it.
Yeah, no, it's it's interesting, especially because like I write very much in like a completely different way from that. And so it's just really interesting to me to hear that it like when people say storytelling, I feel like that's a word that's gotten very overused, but like in this sense, it's fitting and it's clearly accurate because like that example is you're telling a story. But I feel like everybody and their brother wants to say that their music is like storytelling these days, you know? But
It's
that's
definitely
like,
become a
yeah.
marketing thing, and I think not I'm not necessarily in the music sense, but like I feel like anytime I see one of those like how to go viral posts, it's
Mm,
always like utilize storytelling, and it's like it's become a marketing term for
hmm.
sure.
Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah, of course, utilize storytelling, but there's so much to that, like, that just opens up more. It's like how to go viral. That maybe answers that question, but then there's like seven questions to follow that of just like, storytelling can look so many different ways. So, like, what
Mhm.
does that really mean? And so you're right. It definitely, from the marketing side has 100% become, with branding, it's storytelling. With everything, it's all you have to do is storytelling. It's that easy, right?
And to not even like go into the like the specifics of like how I learned to write screenplays, and clearly not very well. Um but there was always kind of like that part of like when you're trying to come up with an idea for a movie or something, you want to show, not tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this kind of was like I was putting too many details into something, and I instead of now I can tell, not show, in a sense. Like it's
Mm.
almost like flipping it.
Okay.
So I guess theoretically, if I wanted to like take a song and make it into a movie, I could now think of the visual aspect more than the actual details because I'm putting all the
Right.
details into lyrics.
Right.
I
No,
say that, but then when I try, I'll probably.
no, but you're 100% right. Like it's the shoes on the other foot, right? You're just kind of flipping it around and taking a different approach to it that way. Yeah, that's interesting. If you had to create a new genre around your style of music, what would it be called?
Hmm. Um, a mess. Uh, it's funny because like there's bands that I've been like noticing a lot more, probably in the last 5 to 10 years, that were kind of like moving away from like the genre stuff, and I think that's good for music personally
Hmm.
because I kind of think like Paramore is like a really good example because they were in that pop punk emo like
Hmm.
not phase, but like they were in that area, that whole genre. And now they keep some of it, but now they go like funk and indie pop and all this other stuff. And whether you like it or not, I find that like it's interesting to as a musician to see what other musicians can do if they just kind of jump out of their comfort zone. Um, so I think in terms of me, like what I kind of fall into like the singer-songwritery acoustic punk kind of area. Um, but I would love to like I if I could incorporate something from like Radiohead or um Bon Iver or something in there. Like I feel like that would be something that would be really cool to see those two things smashed together,
Mm.
or three things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you were to, and I agree with the take on the genres is because it's gotten, and I think part of how accessible music has become, like we have everything at our fingertips these days. It's, I think that has made things just kind of blend more and more together. And also just like as music has progressed, it's like, if you're somebody that listens to like these artists in this space and then like these artists in this space and then you kind of are a product because we're just a product of our own like environments and consumption habits. And so like when you are just like just a creative combination of like the artists that you listen to, but you listen to like a couple of different people from a couple of very different spaces, that's going to be something new. And then like it's almost like family lines, like it just like keeps going down. These artists just keep having genre babies and they just keep, the ecosystem just keeps growing. And so
What?
go ahead.
Sorry? No,
No,
no. Go.
I was gonna I was gonna say like it keeps getting harder and harder to put yourself in a box because it's like, well, I sound like this person in this way and that person in this way, and it's like, how are you supposed to? So you get these like indie pop, folk, rock like titles, and it's like, well, which one is it? Because like you can't like fully be all of them at every moment, but also like how do you, it's not telling anybody anything specific about what you're doing, but it's also like, how am I supposed to communicate that when it's like, I listen to so many different things. So, I get it. But I think if you were to have your own little, like, I call it the genre of one, your own little, like, categorical title, I feel like something with screenplay would have to be in there. Because
Oh,
that's
okay.
the root of it all, right? It's not necessarily
So
about the sound genre. Like, what is it that's different here? It's like or something with that, like something with a screenplay related terminology, if you will.
I'm gonna let you coin it because if I do it, it's gonna be like pterodactyl something. So, so this is on you now.
Well, that's not how this worked. I asked the questions.
I will say though, like to the point you made, like I think like to like kind of going back to like it's not a new thing where I would say like a lot of the stuff that I probably made me want to kind of do any sort of genre blending if I ever get the opportunity to really like
Hmm.
get dive into that is I mean when I was a like a teenager, the biggest bands out there were Linkin Park, Papa Roach. Like new metal was huge, and that's blending metal and rap. And so I think like there's always been like opportunities for that. And now I think maybe but it was still like that gatekeeping thing. Like it's like, oh, you're punk if you listen to these bands, but not that band, or you're like so I think that's hopefully gone away. And now it's just like you like what you like, and if you can find a creative way to involve it, that's awesome.
The gatekeeping is real.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, that's, I mean, yeah, like you said, it's, there's so much that, yeah, everybody is like, this is fits and this, like everybody, the way that people, and like if you, something's not computing here. My mind is just like not functioning, I guess, for a moment. I have like four different ways that I want to say the point that I'm trying to make. I'll go here. If you look at like pop music, and you like if you look at 100 different pop songs, they're all going to be completely different from one another, but they all still fall under that umbrella. And it's like you can't really look at any one of them and be like, well, you're not pop because you're not like this. But it's like, would you all like you're all under the same umbrella, so you're all pop, but like, do these two things belong together? Probably not, because there's like so much underneath it, and like you said, like these things could be punk, but these aren't, and so it's like there's so much to it that it's like I feel like there's very like tiny lines that you almost have to dance to like fit perfectly in one of those bigger buckets. Otherwise,
Mhm.
it's just like I have elements of this and elements of that, and then we get these, and I feel like every genre these days is like something pop, something rock, something folk. It's
Mhm.
like it's just layering it into these different things, and it's like also at the end of the day, how much does that specificity really matter? If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah. And I think like I mean what's good is I feel like when everything was on the when pop was on the radio, it used to kind of just be like the and this is generalizing, but like it was always the like it was the same bass. Like it was and now it's like you turn on the radio and all five people. But it would be like now it's you get like I would say good example, and I don't know every song, but Billie Eilish and Phineas, they I feel like from what I know of their music, they put in some interesting layering
Mm-hmm.
in there where it's not just like a typical 4/4 well it might be 4/4 but necessarily like to the bass drum
Mm-hmm.
4/4. So I think like artists like that, even The Weeknd, I feel like has some interesting pieces that wouldn't necessarily go into that typical pop like sound.
Right. And I mean, pop looks, I feel like when you look at, and I haven't, it's been a while since I've listened to the radio, which I feel like, not that I entirely like grew up on radio or anything, like Spotify's been a thing since I was in high school. So, but like, I'm just keeping an ear to it's probably a good thing to do every once in a while. But I feel like I feel like pop in like the 2010s kind of all fit together pretty well.
Mhm.
Like the rate, like if you like a pop station would have a lot, like those things would kind of all gel together. Whereas like now I feel like we've gotten more processed or more like acoustic. Like, you're Noah Kahn,
Yeah.
who's kind of picked up with things. You're Alex Warren, who's very kind of a little bit more of a folky spin on the pop space. But then you get your Sabrina Carpenter and your Charlie XCX. And it's
Mhm.
like,
Great
what
example.
happened to the middle ground?
Hmm.
What happened to the Katy Perrys? What happened to the One Republics? Like where is this, like where's the Adele? Where's the, you know, we don't have that. So it's like, and there's, against all these little things like somewhere in between and whatnot, but it's like what we're considering still in that pop umbrella, very different things from one another. It's it's interesting.
And I guess to go back, like I guess to kind of go full circle, I think that's healthy.
Right.
I think you're gonna see more interesting stuff because of that. And because you're right, every like 4 or 5 years there was like the Mumford and Sons neo
Mm-hmm.
folk,
Mm-hmm.
radio friendly folk. And then you had for maybe 2 years you had rock and dubstep blending, and it was kind of just like every time there was supposed to be a guitar solo, the computer broke.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I haven't thought about this in a while, but I think that that's a big part of why, I mean, independent music has grown in terms of like people doing it in the space of the like market, if you will, or the share of the market, whatever you want to call it, has gotten bigger and bigger just because of things like social media and whatever else. But at the same time, it's like because everything's gotten so pocketed in that way and you can find exactly what you're looking for if you look for it. That's also then probably what's led to the probably, if in my perception, the number one frustration of independent music people in the world is like getting heard.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you live in this one little pocket and you have to find the people that live in that one little pocket, but it's a little pocket. It's not like, it breaking through that noise is like you just kind of have to beat the horse until the horse is like beyond dead to like get there. You know what I mean? So it's
I feel like a lot of that is you because I do you see it a lot where people are just like you don't have to please everyone, you have to find your niche, and it's
mhm.
like I feel like finding my niche is the matter of hitting the right hashtag, not like like I don't know sometimes like how I could find the 300 people who are all hanging out together, but it could be that that is just how things are going to have to go,
Mhm.
because we've democratized music so much, and everything else, which I mean for a lot some aspects, some reasons that's good, some reasons that's bad, but I would at least hope that if we're going that route, we can find the right people easier. And I feel like that's the
Mhm.
part that needs to be a little bit tweaked because it's getting too hard to find your people, so to speak.
Right, right. And I feel like, and from like the algorithmic perspective, is it's like I've always found, and I know how to train my TikTok algorithm at this point to see what I want to see. But like it's not, you never really like, I feel like you see music content or you don't. And
Hmm.
it's not really like when you see it, like it's more of like that's all the one bubble rather than like people who have interest in like, can't think of a good example, but like people that have it, like, in a type of people that are interested in a certain genre of music, there's probably some other traits and interests that kind of can fall in line with those type of people, right? There's these like, we can have this sense of what a typical fan of ours would look like and what other things they might be interested in. It's not, oh, you like this stuff, so I'm going to show you this music. It's like, oh, you like seeing new music, so I'll just keep showing you new music. So I think that's part of it too, is like these, it's about what's contained within the content and stuff rather than like the like containing that it is presenting music rather than like what the music is.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah. I think
and
you're
yeah.
right there because I think it's interesting how like you've actually managed to train your algorithm to kind of give you a smorgasbord of like different types of music, where
Hmm.
mine has turned into politics, puppies, and singer-songwriters, and it's and I kind of wish now that I got to figure out how to train mine to give me a little bit more. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, 100%. I mean, it's like when I say I've trained it, it's just that there are certain accounts that I see that I'm there's a certain dog account that I'm like, I will never be able to go without this being on my feed. So every single time I'll watch the video all the way through, even if I just like set my phone aside for a minute and the video is like 10 minutes long, I'll let it play through because I know that that's what the algorithm needs to see for it to keep coming to my page. But on that same thing is it's like as soon as you engage with something like just something random, you just even if it's just like a let me see what this is, you'll get more of that. Like you'll get like that'll be 50% of your content in the next hour of scrolling because
right.
that's like, oh, you like this now. We're going to give you more of that. And as soon as you stop engaging with it and or interacting with it or watching it all the way through, it's gone. So it's like it's become such little opportunity in order to break through any of that noise. And everything's become so saturated because again, TikTok just like they say however many thousands of songs are released a day on Spotify, it's because things like DistroKid exist and have made it super easy to release it. Same thing goes with social media. Is like anybody and their brother can make content and post it. And TikTok is their whole narrative is like they want you to post multiple times a day and all this other stuff. So it's like just try and fathom how much content just gets shoved on there every day. How are you supposed to compete with that? How are you supposed to even be able to cut through the noise and find the pocket that your stuff belongs in beyond just people that are just like, because I feel like a lot of the people that see independent music on their feed a lot of the time are other independent music
Yeah.
people
100%.
because it's like, you know, you like it's you consume what you want to like it's that's within your environment like
And also,
so.
yeah, I mean, there's also the aspect of like your phone's listening to you. I mean, that like it's so like if you're because even if you're on Spotify, you're not even on Instagram
Hmm.
or TikTok. If you're on Spotify and you're listening to Noah Khan or whoever, all that data is getting sold,
Hmm.
and it's all going in. They're all sharing it, so you're gonna get more of it. So almost to like break out of that, you'd have to intake stuff you don't like or you don't aren't familiar with,
Mm.
which is probably good, but you would have to do it a lot. So then your algorithm switches, and then you would have to refresh and do it again.
Yeah, I wonder what like your own consumption has to do with the result of what you output because like right now all of my content that I see is like dogs and the Olympics and I that's not what I put out there. So like those two things aren't going to align. I don't think that people that love like dogs in the Olympics are going to necessarily they might, but not necessarily going to vibe with the content that I'm throwing out there into the world. So, taking us out of the rabbit hole that we just went down,
Yeah, we could go
uh,
on for that.
we might be here a while if we keep beating that. Um, Is there a song that you've written that you think best embodies who you are as an artist? Your one song sample of you like this, you'll like the rest. What are you using to get people in the door?
Um, so this is the single I'm putting out in March is the first song that I've put out since 2020, the end of 2022. On that EP, there's a song called Long Island, and I think that is the most me you're gonna really find because it has the storytelling, it has like that acoustic um punk kind of aspect that I've kind of fallen into. And it also kind of has like what I want. Like I want it has kind of like a range of vocals that go from higher and then it's kind of got like this bridge that's kind of got like this is a very someone's gonna disagree, but I has like almost where I think the bridge I was almost influenced by like Depeche Mode, and it's got like me going really low vocally, um, and I think that's kind of where I pulled from, or like Nick Cave kind of thing, and so I think that song has kind of like the most um me pulling from different sources kind of thing, and this new song I think it's kind of a mix of ska, punk, and it's still got that singer-songwriter storytelling aspect too.
Okay. That's a lot of different things going on. But like in a potentially really, really cool way, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, no,
I have been telling people that this song was an accidental ska song, um, because I do write everything on an acoustic guitar, so that's where it starts. Um, and to some people's confusion, I also write the lyrics first a lot of the time because of that storytelling aspect. So pe most people, I feel like, write the music first, but I try to fit the words to the music, um, and which isn't always easy. Um, so also, like, it took me a long time to figure out time because I was writing, especially when you're doing it alone, I'm writing to fit my words, not to a click.
right.
And then when you're trying to play to a click, it's like, oh God, I gotta restructure this. Um, but it in terms of the accidental ska thing, I think because I used to play bass in a ska band too, and I wanted to add like all those layers, so I ended up hiring a drummer who was out in Nashville and a horn player over in the UK, and it was kind of like I gave them the melody and they just ran with it, and that was great because I a lot of these things like you got to if you look at something too long you
Hmm.
need other eyes and ears, so I think they added stuff to it that was not going to come from me, so
Yeah. No, and I think that always it's always interesting because it's like I always like to say that if you give like a song to like 50 different producers, you're gonna end up with 50 different like
hmm
end results. Just kind of like the same thing. It's like with the pop stuff, like all these things can count as pop, but like they're all their own like different take on what that looks like. And so it is always interesting to see, especially when it's like not complete. I'm not gonna say I don't think unexpected is the right word, but like unprecedented maybe of like you're getting a completely different perspective on it rather than like of course it's always like when you create something new, it's like, well, no one really knows necessarily exactly the way it's gonna go until it's there. But it's even completely different when it's like somebody else is doing it. And which is always really interesting on how like bands that write together or groups that write together or even just people that write together, how those ideas and those things can kind of blend together, especially given that we're talking three different time zones on that, you know?
yeah, yeah. That was well, it was interesting because it was through a site called Sound Better,
Hmm.
and so it actually was very streamlined. It was, yeah, there's the time zone aspect, but it was kind of just like, here's what I got, here are my ideas, and then 2, 3 days, sometimes a week passed by, and then like they sent me samples, and I was
Hmm.
just like, oh, this sounds cool. Can you try this? Da da da. And it almost seemed uh pretty seamless. Seemed seamless, geez. But it felt seamless. And I feel like there's if while there is a massive strength in having your own band, especially when it comes to booking and just coordination, um, you won't maybe sometimes in a band like you guys are like you are a metal band, so you want some people want to stay metal, but then maybe another member wants to kind of change things up a little bit. And that could sometimes that breaks up a band. So I feel like in my situation that I currently have, I do have the opportunity to kind of just try things, and I like that. I do like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, getting other perspectives on it and everything is always, it adds. it obviously adds that person's perspective, but it also kind of allows you to look at something through another lens. Like you said, like sometimes if you look at it for too long, it's just like you just kind of hit a wall at some point. So being able to like step back, but also even taking that step in a different direction and looking at it through someone else's eyes, it keeps things interesting. It keeps like new ideas kind of coming, and it's just like how random interactions and things like that can just like spark the random ideas of like, like it's similar to the way of like how you've mentioned that like you just have different random ideas come up and maybe they'll turn into a screenplay kind of thing. So like everybody like it has to kind of come from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like
And
it,
everyone has their process. Like I'm sure
mhm.
there's someone who has a, I'm sure there's a playwright out there that, turns plays into songs that turn into movies that turn into comic books, like
Mhm.
I'm sure there's someone out there who has their own process that doesn't meet the typical, like you're writing about relationships and stuff.
Right. Right. If you had to pick two or three artists that you think your music is like a combination of, who would it be?
Um, hmm. I would say somewhere between, you said two artists?
Two or three.
Uh, Ed Sheeran, Frank Turner, and Green Day.
Okay. Reasons for each?
Um, Ed Sheeran because it's easy to explain and I know everyone knows who he is. Um, because I have also described myself to people who I just met as angry Ed Sheeran. Um, and I'm also I don't know if he's Irish, but I'm clearly Irish. Um, believe it or not, I'm Sicilian too. I got screwed there. Um, uh, and but Green Day because I use power chords and bar chords, and that is 100% of where I started listening to music. I think the first CD I ever had was Third Eye Blind, and then that kind of
Mm,
set me down that alternative rabbit hole. Um, so Green Day is definitely in there. Frank Turner, he if not Frank Turner, Streetlight Manifesto to throw the little ska in there, because both those bands are lyric heavy, and I think that kind of gave me the mental permission to just kind of take all those words that I had on this other piece of paper and put them on this piece of paper and just find a way to make it work because
mm.
I mean I don't know if you've heard either of those artists, but it's like an essay. But I mean, even if you look at hip hop, it's a lot of words. So I definitely took inspiration from wordy artists, and and that kind of opened that door.
I love me some Third Eye Blind. So,
Yes, there's another one.
um, I have a playlist that has like that. There's some older Matchbox 20 on there.
Hell yeah.
Um, like Kryptonite, all that kind of. I can't think of any other, for some reason, I can't think of any other like bands that are specifically on there,
It's
but
all dad rock now.
but there's like I don't know at what point in my life that I like fell into like some of that stuff, but I like that's like my guilty pleasure, but like I'm not guilty about it kind of thing. It's like that's like my unexpected like I love this kind of music kind of thing. But so any mention of Third Eye Blind or anything in that wheelhouse is um I'm here for
I think that's an okay guilty pleasure. I mean, I have
it.
friends that have secret playlists that are like all Aqua. So, and nothing wrong with Aqua, but you can
No.
only hear Barbie Girl so many times.
No, I like I said, guilty but not guilty. Just maybe unexpected. My own little like pocket of, like there's just like a little, I don't know, it's just different. But that definitely is an interesting mix. And but I think your points and reasoning and justification on each makes sense. I feel like even if I hadn't heard your music, like it blends and it fits with everything we've talked about so far with the wordy lyric focused storytelling approach, and then the, what we've talked about in terms of the sonic elements and everything like that. Ska even got mentioned again. So we're wrapping it all up in a nice little bow.
And it's I'm sure there's someone out there who would say like sometimes less if you're more into like the Grateful Dead and stuff, like sometimes less words can tell a better story too, you
Mm,
know. I'm just I am not, how can I say this without sounding self-deprecating? Um I am not that kind of musician. I
mm,
wish I could solo for 10 minutes. I know what I can do, and
hmm.
I'm better at writing than I am at soloing.
And it's about, I mean, it's about playing to your strengths. And I also think that like the problem I have is always like, I'm an overthinker. And so it's always like, well, if I say this, I feel like I also need to say this to like make it seem like with the first thing that I said, I'm not trying to imply that. You know what I mean? Like it's like
Yeah.
I feel like I need to like put bumpers on and like make sure that like what I'm trying to say without directly saying it is like there. And so like, you know,
You're preaching to the choir. You should see how many drafts of an email I do. Like it's bad. Like
I
I overthink when I
you got
write
to
a
put it
lot.
all down and then you filter it out and it's like why did I write this sentence? I said this same thing three
Yep.
different ways in the previous paragraph. We
How
can
many
move on.
times do you say the word just in a sentence? Because I find myself
Oh, I say
deleting the word
just so
just
many
constantly.
times. That hits close to home. I put just in everything. I just wanted to, yeah. I feel called out for that, but that's
Sorry.
accurate. No, no, that's hilarious. Well, this is the point in the podcast where I take a question from last week's artist for this week's artist.
Okay.
So, last week's artist's question is what is a message you would tell with your music if you could only ever say one thing? What is the thesis statement that we'd like to make? Your soapbox moment.
Leave everyone alone and let them do their thing. I think that's kind of where my brain has been since November. Um, and I see the world trying to put everyone in their boxes, and
Hmm.
I want everyone to leave everyone alone and let them do their thing. And I that is the cleanest way I can say that, and I feel like it still says everything that needs to be said.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that, like, in a lot of contexts, can
Yes.
be a very good point. Just like, it's even going back to the genre conversation we had earlier. I know it's not the direction you were going with that statement, but you could have
Mhm.
gone this direction with that statement of just
For
like
sure. Yeah.
like if I want to blend ska with country, let me do it, you know? Like if I want to just make these weird combinations,
And I think that's part of that statement. I mean, because it goes
yeah.
back to the gatekeeping of like what you like. Like
Hmm.
I think it should always just be, and because you know why? It took me so long to, if we're talking about music, like to really just like feel like I'm allowed to like other things.
Hmm.
And because I wanted so badly to give up this image of punk, and like to the point where a hot topic was like an important place in my life, and and that sounds, and now thinking about it, that's like the most unpunk thing you could do. um like let me go to the mall, like um and so I feel so strongly of breaking out of those little carve outs and just doing your thing, and
Hmm.
whether that be on a societal scale or your iPod. Not that anyone has an iPod, but I think it's something that you can at least look at that and be like, you know what? Yeah, I want to like what I like.
Hmm. Yeah. No, and I think oh, you were saying stuff and then something popped into my head and I was like, that's a really good point. And we're just in a place of things are going in one ear out the other. It just in my
Yeah.
head at this point. But no, I think that is a good point of like it doesn't like it can be oh, I know where I was going. Um, I think on the other side of the genre conversation with what we were talking about earlier of like, you know, and I think artists sometimes don't want to answer the genre question because they don't want to pigeonhole themselves into something
Sure.
because they don't want to just be like that one thing. They don't want to have to because nobody really knows what they're gonna make 5 years from now. You know, like it could be completely different. You have artists like you made the comment about Paramore, but the first ones that always come to my mind are your like Taylor Swift's changed a lot over
Sure.
her
Yeah.
career. Lady Gaga is another example of that.
Great example.
Like there's I mean Post Malone's making country music now. He put out a song called White Iverson that's like and now we're like doing like country collabs with these okay, that's just where we are, you know.
I mean,
Um
he's a someone who like he's not afraid to feature on anything, and I
right,
think that's great because it's smart in terms of a branding aspect.
right.
Like he's kind of went from hip hop to country to he kind of I think what was it on SNL or something he covered Nirvana. Like I mean, he is not afraid to kind of just let's see what we can
Yeah.
do.
Right. And it's like you don't like I think this is where the brand, and I'm a very brand focused person. So this is where the brand and that kind of like genre even conversation is like double sided because it's like you have to be able to put yourself in a package in order to convey everything that you're trying to communicate for people now. But people are afraid to do that because they think that's all they'll be known for. But the thing is like brand doesn't have to be permanent. It
Mhm.
can just be like what it is now. We still have to define it. We still have to like put it together and like articulate it and be able to say to people what we are and what we're doing. But it doesn't mean that it's written in stone if you say it. How many
Mhm.
times have like big companies done rebrands?
For sure.
How many different like new logos have you seen from all these different companies? Like
And we all remember IHOB and how well that went. But I think like no, I think you're right because like there's and I guess the lesson there is like yeah, you have to brand yourself in terms of if you're a musician or if you're a freelancer or whatever your area
mhm,
is, you do have to find that audience. But then I think at that point, once you find your audience and you're it's whatever you're doing is working. I think
right.
you also have to trust your audience to not just walk away when you throw something new out there and also know how to respond if it didn't work. Like, because if
Mhm.
there's a consensus from your audience that like adding I don't know, adding a didgeridoo like didn't work for your sound, then you know maybe all right, let me try a violin, let me try
Mhm.
horns, or just maybe three guitars. You know, like something like that, like where you can adapt and still learn and grow.
Right. Right. And it's like, well, also like if you do change, it opens you up to a new group of people to jump on board.
For
Like
sure.
artists that I am a fan of that have gone and done like they've made their like little pit stops. I haven't necessarily loved all of them all the same or even like there are like I like me some Lady Gaga, but there are albums of hers that I'm just like I don't like where we were at this point in time.
hmm
I like certain aspects of what she's done, but it's like that doesn't mean that I'm not still like technically like not everybody's gonna love everything that you do, but also like if you go too far down, also just that one rabbit hole, you allow like everything to start just blending together. You don't want to be the artist that people describe as like all their music kind of sounds the same, you know?
Right. And there's certain, I guess, fan bases where that will work, where you could just write the same song for 30 years and it would keep
Hmm.
everyone perfectly happy. But I think another good example, in addition to Gaga, would be Linkin Park, where um, they were one thing for 3 albums, and then they were like, we have ideas and we want to try new things, and the fan base was like, no. And you know, and I personally liked a lot of what they were doing. I don't necessarily go back to those albums like you're saying, like all the time. Like maybe
Hmm.
there's one or two songs in there that I really like, and then there's other songs that I could skip them. Um, and I do wish they were back to the let people do what they want to do thing, because it's become where like there's too much of a band-aid effect, not band, rubber band effect, where it's like you put
Mm,
something out there and it gets shot right back at you. um and that, I feel like that might not be the healthiest thing in the long run for artistry in general, but it definitely will train you to know your audience and know what works and where your limit is in terms of trying new things.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Um, what is it's been a minute since we started this question. What is your question for the next artist?
Oh,
That's back to where we started this dialogue.
right.
Before I
Um,
forget.
my question for the next artist. Um, this is the question that I think this will encourage me, also because you're an awesome host, but this will encourage me to watch your next episode as well. Um, what is the best lesson you could give someone in the studio?
Okay. Do you know what your answer would be?
No, that's why I'm asking.
We're
I,
asking
I
asking for
like
a friend, right?
like like I mentioned before, like it's like the metronome thing has been such a hard thing for me, and if I ever were to get a band, like an official band, I'd have to make their lives as easy as possible, especially for playing music I already wrote. So the aspect of coming up with, like, maybe just like learning, maybe like how you can learn to play to a click easy, or
Mm.
how to not get frustrated when you're doing a lot of takes, stuff like that, I think is valuable to anybody.
Yeah, well, I think that's funny because I did a, like I told you, I think before we jumped on, we moved in like September. And from the apartment that we moved from, I did a project that I'm going to roll out this year that was I recorded like a live version, basically just like a live take version of all the songs that I made while I was living in that apartment. So we were there for like a little over 2 years.
Mhm.
And I was just going through the audio and like fixing up the takes and everything like yesterday. And there's one where I like right before I started, I said, "Why is it that like I was like, why is it that I can get it until I'm actually recording?" It's like, why
Oh
does it work until I actually need it to work? You
yeah.
know, it's because it's like as soon as it's recording, it's like suddenly know how to, I don't know the words to my own songs. I don't know the chords to my own songs. Like it just suddenly we're just like here, and it's as if I've never done this before. So because it's like, oh, it sounds so good when I'm just playing it by myself and just hanging out. And the thing is it's not like I'm up on a stage doing it live or anything. It's not like there's an audience recording. I can undo it and redo it as many times as I want. So why is it as soon as there's a microphone in front of me that all hope is lost? You know?
I have that same issue, so believe me, you're not alone. And but I have also messed up like that on stage, where I have started one song and started singing another. And I'm like, wait, that's not right.
It's
One
like
time I just
yeah.
kept going. I was like, I have to, I'm halfway through. I have to do it.
Yeah. I have I've been able to and what's crazy is like I'm always like I haven't played out many times, but like there have been a few times where I'm like I played the wrong chord here. I was supposed to go here instead. And I've managed to like finagle it into making it work, but
Mhm.
it's like and obviously you're not going to do that in a recording because you want that to be the right way and you can't undo
Right.
what's live, but like I have that kind of composure to do that, but like suddenly again like metronome brain stops working.
Yeah.
Keeping time is hard. When I first started writing music, I didn't know that that was like a thing you had to do. I just thought that like I could
Yeah.
play it the way that I wanted to play it. And then I had a friend that was like going to play guitar on it or something, and he was like, "Did you like rec- cuz I didn't like set the project to any sort of tempo or I didn't do anything. I just kind of played and just kind of saw where it went." And he was like, "Did you do this?" And I was like, "Why would I have done that?" So,
I've had those conversations. It's and I think the perfect callback to earlier in the conversation is the recording is pulling all the justs out of your email.
yes.
Like
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole thing. What is it that you think sets you apart from other independent artists?
um I guess the screenplay part, I think that's not something where I hear it too often. Doesn't mean it's not happening, but I've definitely tried to make it part of what I do. Um, and I would say if it's in terms of just generally like I am, and I know there's many persistent artists out there, and we need them. But I'm stubborn. I am. I could definitely be sleeping sometimes, but I am writing always. I am constantly trying to see what I can do next for the stuff I do. So the screenwriting and stubbornness.
Hey, in a journey and a path like this one, it's not stubborn. Not a bad place to be stubborn because I think that's kind of the only way that you're gonna gain any kind of momentum or do really like anything with it. You know what I mean? You can't, it's not something that you can like do like casually or like when you feel like it and have it like pay off. You know, like it's not just like a hobby that we can pick up and put down as we please.
Right. I mean, you can, but if you're really trying to make waves, it's you have
Yeah.
to. I mean,
Right.
I earned these lines, like
Well, it's a you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like
right.
kind of thing where it's like if you want to do it casually, that's fine, but like you also can't then expect to like have big things come of it because
Hmm.
like you're not putting in the reps and things that you need to do to get there. Not that there's a quota that you have to meet, but like, you know, consistency's nice. So yeah, I mean, your
I
goals
think
and your effort have to be in line.
I think there's also like if you're gonna be stubborn, I think you also have to keep space in your brain for realizing that even no matter how many hours you put in, whatever, it just might not happen.
Hmm.
And there's a stubbornness to um, accepting that and keeping going. I think
Hmm.
in a lot of, that was something I learned from when I wanted to work like really badly in Hollywood. And like you might not get it. And but if you gave it everything you got and like you're creating stuff still, and it's something that you you value, and even if only 40 other people do too, it's you still made something for that 40 people, and that all those hours should be worth it to some extent, because otherwise if they're not worth it to you, then why are you doing it?
Yeah.
There's other ways you could use your abilities and talents.
Hmm. That's a really good point. It's like you have to be able to see little victories as victories still.
Yeah. That's a quicker way. That's a quicker way of saying.
I took the just out of what you said and then
Thank
put it
you.
that
And
way.
that's very appreciated.
What impact do you want to have with your music and with your artistry?
Um, I don't know that I need to have an. I don't know if I thought about it like that. I
Okay.
think if I can make an impact, it would be that. Um, is there a part of me that wants to be like remembered for something? Sure. But I think the impact I would like to make is kind of goes back to leave everyone alone, let everyone because that I think that's an impact that I think could benefit in like what we talked about in a
hmm
broad sense. So if I could do that, cool.
I think that's fair. I think it's hard to try and like conceptualize that to some extent because it's like you have to almost look at it from a different perspective than like the living it perspective and the doing it perspective. You know, it's like what if we're zooming out and we're looking at it like overhead, what what is the I mean, it kind of is like it's kind of in line with the what is the message thing and the leave people alone and let them do their thing. Um, you know.
I do wish like I mean I guess I and I guess there's like a aspect of it too where it's like knowing what you want to do and say is awesome. I think that's something that is really good to have. But I come from a place where I it took me a long time to not get an ego, but like a self-esteem level where I just am happy to do things and not worry about what every person thinks. And I still do it. I mean, I'm still a neurotic mess, but I think there's an aspect of confidence that where I wish I could just have, where you could just like, this is what I'm saying, this is what I'm doing. You like it, great. You don't, oh well, it's fine. I don't have that sometimes, but
Yeah, and I think that I mean that's a hard it's hard to just kind of be unabashedly whatever you're gonna be in the sense of like because I mean by human nature we want people to understand us, to like us, to connect with us. Like we just like human connection is like the one like food, shelter, and water, human connection. Add that to the list. Like that's just a
Mhm.
natural like human instinct to want that. And so it's you know, that's what makes it so difficult to be like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and you can like it or you can shove it. So get on board or get off. That's up to you. It's that's all like that's crazy to me. You know, it's like I don't and I think it gets easier the more people that you find that fall in that corner rather than the ones that don't. And I think it's and they always say it's like for every one positive thing, like you think of like 10 other negatives, right? Or isn't it it's like there's something with
Yeah.
that where it's like or it takes
Yeah.
like 10 positive things to combat a negative because it's like we want to be perceived positively. And so I mean, being able to just kind of do the things and being fine with whatever the reaction is a journey that is
Yes.
hard.
Yeah. And to what to like quote you like you can like it or you can shove it. That's punk as fuck. Like that is 100% where
Right.
the mentality there. And I wish that I could every song I wrote I could be like you can like it or you can shove it. Like it's something where it's it's a learned behavior, I think. And
hmm
to do that and to be humble at the same time, I think is a real tough.
That's a
balance,
balance.
but people
Yeah.
do it. People can do it great, and I
Yeah.
envy them.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's that balance is like what you accept versus what you reflect. Because,
Yeah.
like, it's just kind of taking everything on the chin is like that. You can like it, you cannot, but you can have that mentality without exuding that mentality. You can just kind of be like, okay, without being like, well, you suck because you don't like it. Like those are two different things. We can be like, fine.
I have a
Yeah.
few musician friends who are very good at um, being the feeling like very confident in the room and but also maintaining a really good level of humility. And I look to them a lot. And that's the beauty of like music scenes too. There's so many people in them that you can learn from. Um, and you can see how other people operate. And I don't mean to imply people watching, but like it kind of you could just kind of take in a lot by watching other musicians and other
Hmm.
um whatever your area is, like just seeing how people work. You learn stuff.
Well, right. And it's so crazy to me that like we can it really it takes thinking to step away from the looking at somebody else and being like, wow, how can they like do all these things, whatever, versus like the inner imposter syndrome of like I don't belong here. I don't really know what I'm doing. Like it's it's easy to look at somebody else and be like, you're killing it. You know what you're doing. Like, look at all that you've done. But then, like, even if you were in those same shoes, it's still like, to you, it's like, I don't know how I got here. I don't know how this happened. I didn't earn this. I just kind of happened to show up here. But, like, the thing is, you had to do something to get there. And I think something that is easier said than understood is like, we're all just kind of figuring it out as we go. No one really knows what they're doing. Like there's no difference between you and the next guy. Like it's just everybody like it is what you make it at the end of the
Yeah.
day. So it's you have to like the instinct is always to be like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. Everybody else does. But like stepping back, it's like no one really does. It's just they're like putting it on better than we think we are.
Yeah, and I guess to really put my nerd on display, like fucking quote Gandalf, you can only use the time that's given to you, kind of thing. Like it's
Mm,
like, and how you use it's how you use it, and that's a
mm-hmm,
choice. And you could let imposter syndrome eat you alive, or you can just say, screw it, I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna do what I can to get what I want done. And I that took me a long time. I think it was COVID that
mm,
really, because I feel like I had the reverse thing from COVID, because I live in a studio apartment in Queens. Like I feel like I'm in a box a lot. So COVID, I literally felt like I was in a box. And and so I think by the time it was over, everyone was like, Netflix is better. And I was just like, no, I gotta go out, I gotta do stuff, I gotta play shows, and it was kind of that kind of mentality where my switch flipped, and I was like, nope, I got to use the world almost ended. It's going to keep almost ending. Let's just do what I can while I can.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a good. And sometimes it does take things like that to put that in perspective. Because it's like, I always say that you can't have good days without having bad days, because everything then would just then be neutral or
Yeah,
just a different kind of neutral. So it's just like that, where it's like, as soon as something is, it's like the you don't know what you got until it's gone.
yeah, for
Until
sure.
it's stripped away, you don't really know what you were missing out on or what you could have been missing out on. So, on that note, I think that brings us to the final question, which is why music?
Oh, I see what you did there. It's the name of the podcast.
No pun on that whatsoever. No, no, no implications. No further statement of that.
Um, why music? It is something that I have completely integrated into my life, and I don't know that I could function if I stopped using it in some way. Um, I when I was a kid, I loved the idea of, even though it's not a real job, to be the person who picked the soundtrack for movies. So like, because I don't know if you remember like the movies in the 2000s, those soundtracks were awesome. Um, and like from when I was a kid, I always wanted music attachment in my life. So, it's just part of me, I think. And for my video editing film career that I've scrambled into my life, I've edited two music documentaries. So it's always coming back. Um, so yeah, I'm stuck with it.
I think I'm stuck with it is a good way to put it. I'm stuck with it. It's stuck with me. We're just kind of here.
It keeps trying to get away. Um,
Yeah. It has a way of it has a tendency to do that.
Yeah, and it keeps like it's like Mario Kart. If it's the player in front of me, the money is the banana peel that it
Yep.
keeps.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it just keeps coming back. Yeah. Well, I think that brings us to the end of this episode of the Why Music podcast. You can check back again next week for another conversation with another independent artist. Thank you for listening.